be. That don't matter. You are divinity in itself. You are part of that infinite spark, which my friend from Galilee said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And the gang back there didn't really grasp what he was talking about. But his truths and his words are as legitimate today as they ever were. And you guys are getting there. You're beginning to pay attention. You're beginning to wake up. Now, as I said, my pissed off list goes down, you know. We had NASA, the politicians, the theologians, and then there's the American mass of people, the public. What is it they used to call the great unwashed? You know, Joe Sixpack. Listen, I have to be kind with Joe because at the moment, bless his heart, he may have lost his job. He may be losing his home. He can't pay his bills. He's got kids to send through school and educate and buy clothes for. So I'm trying to be gentle with Joe Sixpack because he's carrying a heavy load right now. I mean, there are tens of thousands of them out there, all over the country. There may be some of them in the audience here tonight, and you probably know a few of them, and they're damn fine people. So I'm not trying to fault them too much, the fact that they're not paying attention. I get a little ticked off. NASCAR, basketball, football, tennis, golf. My God, these fixations with these little balls, you know? Freud would have a ball with that, you know? No pun intended. Old Sigmund would have a real fine time working that out. Okay. Forgive me for wandering. It's important that I get some of this stuff. One of the things that I fault the average guy out there is for his attention span. He seems to be suffering, the masses of them seem to be suffering what they call attention deficit disorder. Now, it's a problem that the kids in school have. They can't seem to focus on anything more than 2 or 3 minutes, and then they're off somewhere else, And I blame television for that, as well as their parents for allowing them to do that. How many of them sit down and read a book these days? Anyhow, their attention span is very, very limited. The public at large has a limited attention span. For example, let me get back here, go back a few years. Wernher von Braun said in 1959, now get the year, 59, 5 years after 54. Now what the hell happened in 54? Well, something unusual happened at Muroc Air Force Base in California in 54, where an aging president had an encounter that literally damn near killed him. Because right after this event in 54 at Muroc, the poor old dude had a heart attack. He was not able to deal with this thing. Anyhow, in 1959, a famous Nazi by the name of Wernher von Braun, who literally built our Saturn V program from the ground up, had this to say, and this appeared in several U.S. newspapers. I kid you not, this was published in newspapers. Wernher said in 59, "We find ourselves faced by powers which are far stronger than we had hitherto assumed, and whose base is at present unknown to us. I cannot say more at present. We are now engaged in entering into closer contact with those powers." Now, wouldn't you have thought that Wernher would have been mobbed? Explain this? What the hell are you talking about? Who are these powers that you're referring to? I mean, you're one of our top scientists. You're building the Apollo program for us. This is in 59. No major response. Like, it just went over. 1980. Another German professor by the name of Hermann Oberth said this, and this was quoted and published in several American newspapers. "We cannot take the credit for our record advancement in certain scientific fields alone. We have been helped by the peoples of other worlds." Now, did this cause a ripple? Did people say, "What the hell are you talking about, Professor? People of other worlds? What?" Yeah. It cries out for answers, and there weren't any, and nobody made a deal out of it. And then here we have something in 1987. A prominent American senator from Hawaii, Daniel K. Inouye, United States Senator from Hawaii. He said this in a committee, and it's in the congressional record. "There exists a shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, and its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances and free from the law itself." And this is in the congressional record. And did that cause a response? Did people mob the senator and say, "Senator, what the hell are you talking about? This is dynamite"? Attention deficit disorder. Allen Hynek said before he died, a series of events occurred in New York along the Hudson River some years ago, called the Hudson River events, where gigantic triangular and boomerang-shaped objects a mile and a half along across hovered over the Hudson River, moved slowly up and down the Taconic Freeway there, hundreds of people going up and down, guys pulling off the road, looking up and seeing this damn thing. It was gigantic. It hovered over the Indian Point nuclear reactor for an hour. All the alarms went off. All of the security people responded to this thing, and it took place. And not one word from the authorities about this, except some stupid-ass idea. A bunch of guys were flying little planes around at night in formation. The FAA, to its eternal shame, said things like that. Oh, these guys were flying around in their little airplanes, in formation at night. Never mentioning that this was a total violation of FAA regulations, as if those little guys in little airplanes could match something that's a mile and a half across, a boomerang, a triangle. Attention deficit disorder. It goes on and on and on. Where am I here? As I say, I tend to wander, forgive me. Okay, I've given you your little parable. I talked about David Froning. I talked about Ben Rich. I quoted Inouye, von Braun, Oberth, the shadow government. Oh, I want to touch upon one little other thing here. There's an amusing situation that has taken place. I find it amusing and I find it tragic. There's a young Brit by the name of Gary McKinnon. Many of you, I'm familiar with this story. Gary, it seems, is a computer nerd. He's a real genius. He's a hacker. Well, Gary happened to be able to hack into the Defense Department computers here about a year ago, a little over a year now. He hacked into NASA's computers a little over a year ago. And he come up with some stuff that was dynamite. And so what happened is that we found out about it and we got a hold of the Brits and we said, we want that man and we're going to put him on trial and we're going to stick his ass in jail for 70 years. And so help me God, the British agreed to extradite young Gary McKinnon to the United States for trial and sentencing. Now I stand curious to see what kind of a trial they plan to put on for McKinnon. It's got